Welcome back to Neo Insight for the final test. Michael Thomas is standing on the threshold of home, having sacrificed his greatest earthly desire. Now he faces the ultimate and final challenge, the seventh house, the golden house of self-worth. The master's puzzle is incomplete without one last piece: total and absolute self-acceptance. Michael encounters the magnificent angel Gold, who presents him with a golden chair, symbolizing his right to rule. But the dark entity's final weapon, the insidious voice of unworthiness, strikes at the last possible moment, demanding that Michael turn back from the threshold of home. In this climactic episode, Michael must fight the voice in his own mind that screams, "You don't deserve this." Watch now to witness the final battle for his soul and the monumental moment when Michael Thomas finally opens the door marked home. The seventh house. It wasn't that the weather had turned sour, but it certainly wasn't what it could have been. Mike was used to either wonderful sunshine, with accompanying mild temperatures, or an assault of the elements that would arise almost instantly and pummel a watermelon into a raisin within 10 minutes. Today, however, the skies were overcast and had slowly turned a gunmetal gray, giving everything an appearance of sameness. The temperature was becoming a bit chilly, and there was a slight breeze that somehow felt ominous. It pulsed instead of remaining steady, like some kind of forbidding, rhythmic messenger. The clouds didn't develop into anything worse, but they didn't seem about to clear either. Mike had been on the road slightly less than an hour. He wasn't concerned about the weather, but he was aware of the change. Mike had pretty much been on automatic during this journey to the next house. He remained vigilant, watching behind him for trouble, but his mind was filled with thoughts of the decision he had made. When he had started toward the last house, there was an intense feeling that he had somehow passed an invisible spiritual marker, a seeming demarcation point in his journey. He hadn't yet let go of the vision of being back on Earth with Anoli and the children at his side, everyone smiling. When his thoughts went there, his heart soared and he felt relaxed. When he looked ahead of him and saw the winding path leading to an unknown challenge, he felt alone, and his heart grew heavy with a deep sense of permanent loss. No one had died, yet there was a spot in his heart that grieved. Still, he walked forward in deep thought, not noticing that the terrain was changing slowly but dramatically. Mike rounded the corner of an especially sharp curve. He noticed that he had passed into a canyon of some kind with steep sides sloping up sharply on each side of the path. He observed for the first time that instead of slow rolling hills and lush grass, he now was standing in an almost desert-like landscape with outcroppings of large boulders and cliffs, and an occasional large tree accenting the barrenness of it all. He recognized that he had completely missed the change of topography due to his preoccupation with his thoughts. The path was leading into a gorge with very steep sides. This, plus the gray clouds, diminished the light level even more, so that it might have been dusk rather than early morning. Mike was being poked by his intuition. Objects in the distance were not clear. Were they rocks or? Be more alert. Watch for danger. Mike suddenly became aware that he had been in a mental daze for the last hour. He stopped and took a number of deep breaths, clearing his mind. There was a tingling feeling. What did it mean? Mike obeyed his instincts and looked around him for trouble. He searched the path behind him, looking for the dark entity that had been dogging him each time he ventured out, but he saw nothing. There was no motion. The gray sameness of the past hour had also added to his complacency and his lethargy of thought. Apart from the odd weather and new-looking surroundings, he could see nothing that was unusual or threatening, but his instincts told him that he was being somehow prepared for something. Mike softly thanked his new vibratory power for doing its job. He took out his map. Perhaps it would tell him something. Mike examined the map. Something was odd. It showed the narrow chasm he was in and the area immediately around him, but there was something different. He looked closer. There, about 100 yards up the path on the map, just out of sight from where Mike actually stood, was a blank spot. This was unusual. Ordinarily, the odd but very useful map was filled and around the red. You are here. The chart didn't show much of the future or the past, but what it did show was generally accurate. portrayed in elegant detail. Now, there appeared to be a blank spot up ahead, as if it had been erased. What could a blank spot mean? Blue. What does a blank spot on the map indicate? Mike asked out loud. Blue didn't answer, but Mike's own intuition did. Almost immediately the answer came to him. He remembered that the thing that had been following him had kept out of range of the map. Perhaps this was why, because it showed up as a blank spot. Blue had told him that the map was compatible with the now. It was the current kind of energy around a sacred journey and reflected a certain vibration. Something was ahead that did not belong in the now. Something was just around the corner that was invisible to the map's high vibratory rate. The absence of information on the map was due to something that was not vibrating at the same level as the sacred land around it. Mike felt that his analysis was accurate. The thing was lying in wait for him. He should have been more alert. What would he have done had his new intuitive powers not awakened him? He softly cursed his seemingly helpless romantic mind and concentrated instead on the mind of the new warrior inside. It didn't take long. He felt a peace and power that reflected his intent. He was waking up each cell with the message that something was coming, something important. Wake up, everyone. Mike smiled at the thought of speaking to his biology, and again thought he could hear Green laughing. He missed Green. Humor was a wonderful medicine in this time of preparation. Preparation? For what? A battle. Suddenly, Mike had a revelation. Like an enormous tidal wave of understanding, thoughts and visualizations came crashing down on him with the horrendous weight of realization. He was motionless. He verbalized his new fear to whatever was listening. My God, what if I am actually supposed to use these weapons? Mike was shaken. He felt anxiety run through his body. No, this couldn't be. These are New Age symbols of being a warrior of the light. Symbols, he yelled as he looked skyward and spun around, as if expecting to see some of his angel friends lurking against the walls of the dimly lit gorge. His voice echoed back at him. Orange, you never taught me how to fight, so I assumed there would be no real use. He stopped in mid-sentence. Mike realized that he was shouting. He heard his voice echoing back from the canyon walls. More thoughts ran through his mind. Words spoken by those he had met along the way started coming back to him. He recalled that Red had told him that some tests would frighten him, but he had assumed Red was referring to the storm he had encountered. Now he realized Red had been speaking of things to come, not things past. What was coming? He remembered the recent words of White as he described Mary in the hospital room. Don't let appearances fool you, Michael. She is a warrior of the light. She has slain the giant and is powerful. Slain the giant. Then, he remembered the words White had spoken as Mike was leaving the white cottage. It's not over, my human friend. All these warnings and nuances. Is theirs a battle coming? A real one? One where I'll have to actually use the sword? Mike sat down on the path. His knees were weak with fear and panic. He wasn't a warrior, not a real one. Angels, you didn't prepare me for this, he said to the gray sky and the menacing canyon walls. I don't fight. Why would such a thing be? Real battles and real weapons represent an old vibration. They represent an old way of thinking. They are not appropriate here. There was an odd stillness. The wind died. It was deathly quiet, and then the voices began. Unless you are about to fight an old energy. He heard the clear voice of Orange. Mike instantly stood up and twirled around as if to find out where the voice was coming from. And unless you are about to fight a biology that doesn't vibrate as high as yours. He recognized the voice of Green. The angels' voices were coming from inside him. And unless who you are about to meet really isn't part of your family, Michael. It was the voice of Red. And unless there is no love there, Michael. He heard the soothing and wonderful voice of White. I didn't know, cried an anxious Michael Thomas. I'm not a real warrior, White. Neither was Mary, Michael. White's voice was comforting. The old energy responds to the old paradigm, Michael. That's what it understands. It was the lovely feminine voice of Violet. Orange, tell me how to fight. Mike was distressed. I did. He heard the encouraging voice of Orange again. You are ready, Michael Thomas of pure intent. You are ready. What should I do? cried Mike to the walls of the canyon. Silence. Then he distinguished the voice of Blue. Remember, Michael Thomas, things may not be as they seem. The words rang out like they never had before. They carried admonishment, warning, and advice that might be needed right now. The entire entourage of angels were there with him. With power like that, thought Mike, there must be something really scary ahead. Mike was nervous. He knew that he didn't actually have battle skills, and yet the angels were telling him that he did. He had to trust them, and after all, what choice did he have now? He was there, at the front line. He looked around him again and nodded sarcastically. No way of escape, he thought. Whatever or whoever was waiting for him had chosen a good place to attack. The walls were too high to climb, and retreat would only be possible within a narrow channel, an easy chase. Everything had been thought of. At least he knew where IT was, and there would be no surprise. The more he thought about it all, the more confident he became about the ordeal ahead. His new vibration was helping out, and he knew it. He began to feel a peace that he knew wasn't logical, but spiritual. He was beginning to feel enabled, even though he didn't exactly know in advance what he would be facing, or how he would deal with it. That was appropriate, Mike thought. After all, this is the way of this place. He analyzed it. The future is not available to me, but somehow it has already happened in the mind of God, therefore. The solution to this situation has already been revealed, that I'm just not privy to it yet. Like before, I'll know when I get there. I have the knowledge and the power, and this is my land. I have the home advantage. Okay, Mike spoke out loud. I've been beaten up by a storm, stomped on by an angel, lost all my precious belongings. My emotions have been subjected to ringer after ringer. My biology has been lifted and altered, and I've had my heart wrenched out, examined, and put back wet. What else is there? I have the tools. I am ready. Mike thought for a moment, then added, I just wish I knew how to fight. He sighed and looked in the direction of the upcoming challenge. Mike decided to do something that a few weeks ago would have seemed silly and ridiculous. He knelt and held a small ceremony over what was about to happen. He touched each piece of battle equipment and named its purpose. He drilled himself with the things Orange had taught him about balance. He spent almost 20 minutes in gratitude that he had been chosen to battle whatever it was around the corner. He honored the land and his very existence. He acknowledged his place in the family of spirit. Then Michael Thomas arose, ready for battle, as ready as he could be anyway. Mike started forward again. He rounded the pathway that exposed the long distance ahead. The sharp walls of the canyon made the path look like a dark, fateful tunnel of doom. He knew IT was ahead. The map had clearly shown him so. Ordinarily, this entire episode would be calling for Michael's body to go into shock. All his fear alarms would have been sounding, and he would have been a shaking mass. After all, he was just a salesman, not a warrior preparing to meet some huge dark ghoul. Instead, though, his senses were alert, and he was filled with commitment, not fear. All his vibratory powers and new gifts were starting to kick in. His intuition was king, and with each step, he listened to it, knowing that it would not fail him. Nothing. Then motion to the left. Michael spun quickly and saw a large tree to the side of the path, about 30 yards away. Where had the motion been? Drat this darkness in the middle of the day. Is this all part of the test? Why hasn't Spirit provided more light? The motion was there again. Mike saw that it came from just under the branches of the tree. Who is it? Come out. Mike's voice was empowered and commanding. If you don't, I'm coming in. He stood waiting, his every cell alert. Slowly, a normal-looking man emerged and stopped just under the outer branches. He was dressed like a farmer, except that his feet were bare. He held up his hands in a pushing motion with his palms turned toward Mike. He spoke. Mike, please don't hurt me. I'll come out. The man slowly materialized from under the tree and walked toward Mike. As he came into clearer view, Mike thought he recognized the walk. No, it couldn't be. Now the man's face was clearly recognizable. Dad. Michael's father gradually walked up to the path and stood not 6 feet from Mike. Mike swore in his mind that he could smell the familiar odor of the farm coming from the man. Yes, son. "It's me. Please don't hurt me." Mike wasn't a fool. He knew that this could all be deception. After all, things are not always as they seem. The man who appeared to be his father could actually be something else. In fact, the odds were highly in favor of it. He continued his watchfulness and was alert to a trick as he spoke. "Sir, you are standing right where I was told an enemy is supposed to be. Don't come any closer." "I know, Mike. It's just up ahead, son. You are being duped. The thing waiting for you is going to capture your very soul. All this is wrong. Please, you must believe me." Mike still didn't buy it. "What are you doing here?" "By the grace of God, I am here to stop you before it is too late. I was allowed to return to this place to warn you. I have been waiting here for days, knowing that eventually you would come to this spot. All who venture forward will be defeated by the beast. Many have come this way, and all have died. This is an evil land. You are being tricked." Mike still didn't believe that this was his father. After all, it was just a bit too convenient. "Please forgive me, Father, but I need proof. Tell me what my childhood nickname was." The man spoke instantly. "Mikey Waikiki." Mike winced at the truth. What happened in Mr. Connell's barn in 1964? A giant party celebrating the birth of twins, whom he named Sarah and Helen. Mike was examining everything this man told him with a fine-tooth comb. The voice and body were perfect. He continued by asking the man to tell the story of Michael's childhood, schools, friends, clothing, and events. As both men stood facing each other, his father droned on for half an hour, relating every part of Mike's past perfectly and accurately. Slowly, Michael began to relax. This man knew everything. He really was there. No evil entity could have memorized things known only to Mike. Mike's intuition was still on alarm, but this really was his dad. His father was starting to sweat. "Father, what's going on? I still don't understand." "Michael, I love you so. Right now you are lying in a hospital bed with grave injuries to your neck. Remember? Surely you have to remember what happened in your apartment. You have been floating ever since, in a coma, susceptible to the workings of the devil himself." All this, Michael's father swept his hand around, indicating the surrounding mountains, "is a fairyland. It's fake. Nothing here is real. Everything you have been shown, and all the cute-colored fairy houses are nothing but a trick to take away your soul." The man's breathing was becoming labored. Mike knew that what his father was telling him couldn't be so. It was so confusing. He knew who he was and what he had experienced, yet his father's words seemed to ring with authority. And this man knew so much. Why was his father suffering health problems as he stood there? Wasn't he a spirit himself? After all, he was dead and had come from the other side. He shouldn't be having physical problems. "Father, are you okay?" "Yes, son, but I can't stay much longer. This place is evil, and I am from a heavenly place. The two don't mix, you know." "So I've been told," Mike said. "Mike, come with me. There's a heavenly portal under the tree. I can take you back. You can regain consciousness back on Earth and come out of the coma. It will save your life and your soul. Please come with me." The man was growing weaker by the moment, and Mike thought he saw a blurring of the image in front of him. Mike was torn with indecision. He knew better. Everything in his body told him better. Yet here was his trusted father with the very believable story. What if this land was a fake? No, it wasn't. Mike's inner being knew it. He wanted to try one more thing. What was the name? He had memorized it. He remembered and instantly spoke it. Anihu. Mike stared at his father, and the man stared back. "What, son?" "Anihu," Mike said again, slowly backing away. "Is that some fairy word you learned here, boy?" The man was obviously nervous. His clothing was becoming wet with sweat. Mike stood very still. Chills crept up the back of his spine. His father had never called him boy. Mike stood prepared. This was it. He felt the armor on his body begin to vibrate. The shield on his back was beginning to oscillate on its hook, as if it wanted off. He gave the appropriate answer. "No, sir. Anihu is your heavenly name, and you didn't know it." The two figures stared at each other in a standoff that seemed to last an eternity, but which, in actuality, was only a few seconds. The game was up. The deception hadn't been good enough, and IT was unable to hold the energy to preserve it. IT was ready to fight. Enough. With a shout that had the volume of 10 men, the figure that had been Mike's father began to change its form completely. Gradually, the sweating farmer transformed into a huge, menacing, ghoulish shape. Mike traveled backward as IT grew, alert and ready. IT was at least 15 feet tall, with fearsome red eyes. IT's mottled wart-covered skin was an ugly green. The creature looked as though IT hadn't washed in eons. IT had enormous hands with large, dirty fingernails and arms that were far too long for IT's symmetry. And IT smelled. Short, stubby legs added to the oddness of IT's appearance. But Mike knew just how swift IT could be. He had seen IT many times as a blur behind him. The distance between Mike and the hideous creature had grown to about 20 feet, and he was going to keep it that way for a while. Perhaps allow even a bit more space between them. Mike was repulsed by the thing unfolding before him. IT was neither human nor beast. IT was unnatural and didn't belong in any dimension that Mike had ever been in. The stench was unbelievable. The face on the enormous bald head was constantly changing, from one horror to another. When IT opened IT's mouth, Mike could see IT's large, razor-sharp teeth. When IT closed IT's mouth, the fearsome cavity disappeared into the ugly mass of warts and skin. IT's bulbous nose obviously didn't work, or IT couldn't have lived with itself. Everything disgusting and repulsive that a human could imagine was embodied by this creature. Was it real, or was it illusion? Mike didn't know. Whatever else it might be, IT was a shocking revelation of the energy of old things and ways. IT represented the antithesis of peace and love, and IT stank of death. The hatred and viciousness of IT's consciousness was overwhelming. IT looked at Mike with contempt, as if he were an ant about to be smashed without thought or remorse. The creature was driven by loathing for Mike's world. IT projected that energy directly at Mike, who had become the focus of IT's wrath. Mike could barely stand to look at IT. He was repulsed and revolted. He felt the creature's projected hatred, but when he realized that he was reacting to the creature in a way that IT wanted him to react, he stifled the waves of nausea. Not everything is as it seems, Mike repeated to himself. He suddenly realized that IT was showing off, creating the illusion of a fiend, a trollish ogre just for effect. Mike's body responded to the situation instinctively. The vibratory level of his new being was on full alert. Like a seasoned warrior, a veteran of numerous battles, Mike felt ready for any move from the green-skinned horror in front of him. Although his body hummed with strength and vitality, Mike remained motionless. His sword began to vibrate. He could hear it. The subtle hum of the F note was starting to sing. Still, Mike did nothing. His curiosity was too great. He had to know more. Now, it was Mike's turn for deception. "You're so big." Mike feigned fear. He cowered and raised his arms defensively to cover his face. He made his voice shake convincingly. "You're the real beast, here to take my soul." Folds of green skin and warts parted as the creature opened IT's mouth cavity to speak. Mike heard IT's real voice for the first time. "So weak," the thing gloated. "I knew it." IT's voice was deep and menacing. IT reminded Mike of something out of a bad horror movie. "Please, I'll do whatever you want," Mike squeaked. "Do you want me to go to the tree? To the portal?" Mike felt his sword beginning to jump up and down in its sheath. He hoped the creature wouldn't notice the metallic noise. "Don't be ridiculous. I'm here to kill you." If it were possible, the thing seemed to be getting even bigger. Mike realized that IT probably had the ability to be any size IT wanted. "Who are you?" Mike shrieked. He hoped his acting wasn't too clumsy, but the thing seemed to believe him completely. What an ego IT had. "I'm the part of you, Mikey Waikiki. That's the real Mike Thomas." The creature boasted. "I'm the strong part. Take a look at your power. I'm the essence of your intellect and the basis of your logic. Taking on the appearance of your father may have been just a disguise, but the words were true, boy. You are indeed lying in a hospital bed in a coma. And I'm here to get you out of this pretend land of nonsense entities and good witches and bring you back to real life. To get you out of there, I have to destroy the ridiculous pixie spirit you have become." Mike realized that at one level what the ghoulish thing was telling him was accurate. IT really was part of Mike. It was a part he wanted put away forever, an old, ugly part that he recognized and hoped no one would ever see. He shuddered and crouched a bit more. "Don't overdo it," said a voice inside. "And you have to kill me?" His sword was violently rattling against the scabbard now, but Mike realized that the noise added to the deception that he was shaking with fear. "Figuratively, yes. Your demise in this fairyland of idiocy will end your self-deception and bring you squarely back to the real world. I have been aware of your silliness from the moment you entered the gate, and thankfully was able to slip in after you. I have been trying to bring you back to reality ever since." The thing was starting to move toward him. "Am I that bad?" "Keep IT talking," Mike thought. "Keep shaking, sword." He sent his thoughts to his weapon. "It's good for the deception. In your physical weakness, you have embraced their claptrap, their silly drivel. Nothing here is real, boy. You have been so tricked by the illusions here that I will have to completely destroy this part of you to save your mind and your soul. I detest everything you have become." Mike had to act fast. "Before you kill me, can you prove what you are saying is real? If you are logic and intellect, then help me see the logic of it." Mike knew that this ugly thing wasn't going to wait much longer, but by appealing to its monstrous ego, he thought he could buy a little more time. Mike cowered some more and shook convincingly. His vibrating sword helped the image. "Of course I can." IT knew IT was in control, and IT was about to squash this new age fairyland forever. IT hated this land of make-believe. IT represented the real world, where there were no pathetic weaklings like Michael Thomas. IT embraced logic and pragmatism, a system of beliefs based on previous experience and substantiated by reputable men of history and science. The creature rose to full height and announced, "The one who is correct here has absolute power. Logic and reason represent the truth. That's why I can exist in this insubstantial world, because I am truth. Nothing here has power over me." IT let out a roar that hurt Mike's ears and actually seemed to bend the grass around Mike's feet, instantly turning it greenish-brown, so that it matched the horrible creature's skin. "Really?" Mike asked, smirking at the beast. He dropped his act and stood up to full height. "Then let the proof begin," shouted Mike. Mike never realized that he could move so fast. With expert balance and a swiftness practiced in the House of Orange, he found himself on a 6-foot-high rock, not 15 feet from the beast. He had actually advanced on a monster. His sword literally leaped from its scabbard and began to sing the fundamental F note with accompanying harmonics as it found itself firmly in Mike's grasp. It was an eerie sound, but full of strength and promise. Michael held the sword, not pointing toward the creature, but pointing skyward. Mike also found that he held the shield in his left hand. Somehow, as he made his lightning move to the rock, the shield had found his hand. He now held it aloft, its ornate silver inlay facing the beast. Michael Thomas, the warrior, stood ready. To say that the creature was taken by surprise would have been an understatement. IT looked at the situation. Suddenly, the frivolous-minded, easily frightened prey had become a threat, and it was doing unexpected things. Was the boy going to attack? How foolish, IT thought. IT would swat this upstart like an irritating gnat. This would be almost too easy now. Mike's proximity made it necessary for the creature to back up in order to use IT's long, monstrous arms. IT drew back, clenching IT's powerful fingers into huge fists, and prepared to attack. As the creature positioned itself for the onslaught, Mike's voice rang out. "Behold the sword of truth. Let it determine who has the power." Mike had no sooner finished speaking when the beast attacked. Mike felt as if he were watching an ocean liner approach at top speed. It was all he could do not to close his eyes. At that moment, a light of unbelievable intensity seemed to leap from the blade of Mike's weapon and strike the beast with incredible force. The blow did not stop IT's forward motion, but served to deflect IT's attack off to one side. Even though the creature was thrown off balance, IT was still able to send a blow in Mike's direction. Mike automatically thrust his shield up protectively, although he was sure the mighty fist was going to smash him and the shield with a single blow. But the shield and armor again did what they had done during the earlier storm, even though Michael Thomas hadn't realized it. The armor instantly surrounded Michael Thomas with a bubble of protective light. The shield shot a series of intense dart-like pulses into the approaching arm. Light seemed to blaze up around Michael, to fly in all directions. The smell of ozone from the ionized air and the interaction of matter meeting antimatter was pungent. Instead of the crashing blow Mike expected from the creature's arm, the monstrous extremity was instantly repelled by the protective light. So powerful was this force that it had the effect of actually lifting the creature off the ground and knocking IT backward for some distance. Mike was unscathed and continued to stand where he had been. The light was beautiful. Michael Thomas was astounded by the gifts he held in his hands. They had worked perfectly in tandem and had repulsed the attack of the giant. Mike noticed that while the battle-created light was pleasing to him, the massive beast had to shield IT's eyes from the intensity. The light continued to work in Mike's favor. Used to the dimness of the gray day, the creature was finding it difficult to adjust to light. Mike smiled, in recognition at the gift of weather. He indeed was on home ground. He spoke confidently to the beast, something he remembered Orange had said. "Does the shield of knowledge irritate you, my ugly green nemesis? Darkness cannot exist where there is knowledge. No secrets can survive in the light, and light will be created when truth is revealed." At these words, the creature was up on IT's feet and charging Mike again, this time with menacing resolve. Mike didn't think he could stop the freight train attack this time. An arm was one thing, but the whole package? Mike waited until the last possible moment. Then he darted forward off the rock, just as the creature reached him. Again, Mike advanced instead of retreating, and again he created an unexpected situation where he was too close to be captured or dealt with easily. The size and weight of the beast was working against it. Mike actually found himself running between the giant's enormous stubby legs. As he passed beneath the creature, he extended his arm, thrusting his sword so that the blade tore into the beast's crotch with a glorious light display. Additionally, Mike swung the shield so that it struck one of the legs, and the green-skinned extremity was again powerfully repelled, like a magnet slamming against a larger one of the opposite polarity. A sudden burst of light from the shield appended the creature. IT instantly recoiled and was airborne. IT clutched itself and writhed in the air, like a high-diving champion performing a double twist. IT landed on the ground hard in unceremonious and undignified agony. IT rolled and roared IT's protest, ending up in a smoking, wounded heap. Sparks were still erupting between IT's legs where Mike's sword had done IT's damage. No little green-skinned uglies in your future. Mike's repartee was delivered calmly and smugly. He advanced on a huge, loathsome troll. Mike held his sword aloft as he slowly and cautiously walked toward the repulsive beast lying on the ground. He stopped just out of IT's colossal arm's reach. "Will you capitulate? Who has the truth here? Exactly where is the power?" "I will die first," croaked the wretched creature. The voice was a raw groan, barely comprehensible. "So it shall be," announced a fearless Michael Thomas, ignoring the increasing stench of the wounded beast. The smelly creature was not through yet. IT was not a spiritual being. IT was, like Mike, a biological entity in this strange land of colored angels and lightning swords. IT hurt and IT bled. Mike could see the grievous wound that had been inflicted by his magic sword in the last foray, and he winced at the sight. A black, sticky substance gushed from the nasty wound, staining the already ugly and diseased-looking skin, turning the giant's legs black. Mike thought that the creature must be in incredible pain, but it was getting up again. When IT stood upright, it swayed slightly. IT's eyes appeared as narrow slits now, the light that surrounded IT almost too bright to bear. Mike knew that he had won. Killing wasn't in Mike's repertoire. He had never killed anyone or anything on purpose. Even on the farm, he had refused to kill the chickens. But he knew that any killing here was symbolic, and the detestable thing before him was not actually going to die. It would just be ultimately and painfully defeated. The scene of the two battling entities was classic. The light from the previous pyrotechnic blows still seemed to linger from the glowing sword, shield, and armor. Sparks continued to snap and pop from different parts of IT's smoking body as IT righted itself in preparation for a final attack. Now, Mike's armor was also starting to sing a victorious song. The highly outlined hard shadows created from the light of truth, knowledge, and wisdom revealed the dismal, stark sight of a huge, wounded, swaying, vile creature about to desperately sacrifice itself to the power of Mike's small weapon. It was David and Goliath, and the vision was surreal against the walls of the narrow canyon of no escape. The two unequally matched warriors stood barely 30 feet apart, each stubbornly standing his ground. It was again Mike who moved first. Mike was far too swift for the wounded behemoth. He focused on IT's most vulnerable areas, and before the immense beast could react, was again allowing the searing light from his sword and the reverse polarity of the marvelous shield to do their work. In a desperate, mindless attempt to stave off IT's attacker, the creature began to flail IT's arms wildly. In so doing, the creature did even more damage to itself against the invincible spiritual weapons of light, truth, and knowledge. The spectacle was something to behold. Not only was there a light show of incredible proportions, but the sounds were thrilling. The spiritual battle weapons lifted their combined voices in a loud, harmonious song of victory. Orange had never mentioned that the weapons all sang. The final skirmish was over in less than a minute. The energy discharged from the sword and shield quickly defeated the Leviathan. IT's entire nauseating length was stretched out before Mike, like some kind of quivering, rotting mound of putrid flesh. The stench of IT's blood gushing from numerous wounds assaulted Mike's nostrils. Suddenly, Mike's battle weapons ceased their singing, and the smoldering, green-skinned thing on the ground began to lose substance. "I'm not gone, Michael Thomas. There will be another day." It groaned as it began to fade away. "I know," Mike said, as he looked into the red eyes of the revolting titan. He knew the death of the evil creature was symbolic, but he also knew that the battle was extremely real. He shuddered to think that the outcome might have been reversed. Michael could have been the injured, dying one. He might have been the one fading into obscurity, were it not for his spiritual weapons. He was glad it was over. Mike slowly sheathed his wonderful sword of truth, but not before thanking it out loud. He did the same for his shield, as he returned it to the hook on the back of his armor. He hugged his armor and celebrated how well it had worked. Then it happened. Mike felt the three gifts start to leave. They were vanishing as the beast had done. "And oh," he cried, "I need you. Please." But Michael Thomas's weapons were being absorbed into his biology. A meld was taking place that was only possible due to the intent of his own ceremony and because of the victory the weapons had just facilitated. Mike was startled. He cried out for an explanation. "What now? Why are they leaving?" "Michael Thomas of pure intent, your marvelous gifts are still there, but now you carry them inside." It was the soothing voice of Orange. It was Orange who had bestowed the gifts in the first place. The angel continued, "You have earned the right to assimilate them. They are now part of you, Michael Thomas, and will reside within your very cells." Mike sat down on a nearby rock. "And the next battle?" Mike inquired of Orange. "Will be won the same way, Michael, but without the tangible appearance of the weapons. Truth lives within you now, as well as the power of knowledge and wisdom. There's no beast that can ever take them away." Mike considered Orange's words. Then he invoked another angel. "Green, have I shifted again?" "Yes, Michael. Absorbing the gifts has made you complete. There is only one more of us for you to meet." It was comforting to hear Green's voice again. "Who will it be?" Michael didn't want to wait until the next house. "The grandest angel of them all, Michael. You shall see," Green replied. Michael stood up. He felt strange. Everything had happened so quickly. Meeting the creature disguised as his father, realizing that he would have to fight an actual battle, defeating the monster, and now the seeming removal of the gifts he had grown so used to. He sat back down and began to go over the events of the past 20 minutes. White, who was the beast really? Mike asked White, since he intuitively felt that White's answer would be the most enlightening. He was not disappointed. It was the part of you without love, Michael. It was the human part that is always present and that must always be dealt with, if left unchecked. Humanity without love actually creates darkness. White's voice was amazing, and it instantly put Mike at ease. Will it come again, White? As long as you are human. It is in the background, ready to pounce, replied White. But love will keep it weak. Mike was introspective. I have but one more lesson here, he thought, and then I can shed my human form. Mike was anxious to open the door to home. That magic door was his ultimate goal. He thought about what it would mean. A peaceful, loving existence. An existence with spiritual purpose. Mike was suddenly aware that the weather had cleared completely. In the warm sunlight, he looked around the battle scene. He could see the scorch marks where his powerful weapons had defeated the enemy. He touched his waist where his sword belt had been and touched his chest where he had worn the armor. He missed it, but he knew that what the angels had said was true. He didn't feel any different or any lighter. He now carried the power inside, and it made Michael a mighty warrior of love indeed, just as Mary had been in the hospital. He smiled when he thought of her strength and thanked her mentally for the vision. Then Mike felt his chest again and realized the map was gone too. The map. Mike spoke out loud. He was disappointed. It's inside you also, Michael. It was blue again. Your intuition will be every bit as valuable. Mike felt naked. But it's okay, he thought. I won't be human long. I won't need these gifts when I pass into heaven and go home. Only one more house. It didn't take long to walk out of the canyon, but there was a grand vision awaiting Michael Thomas as he drew close to the end of its craggy outline. As the end of the narrow ravine came into view, he could see a more serene landscape awaiting him in the distance. Mike also beheld a glorious rainbow arching over the ravine. It glowed brightly against the increasingly clear blue sky of the magic land. It marked the end of the canyon and symbolized the end of his journey. He moved forward, transfixed by the rainbow's majesty, only occasionally glancing down to see where he was walking. Then, Mike realized what had created the rainbow. 6 enormous friends ablaze with color were there in the sky before him. They were so grand, so proud, all holding hands and forming a rainbow of celebration for the human they called Michael Thomas of pure intent. He passed beneath them, emotionally calling their color names and thanking each one. There was Blue, who had given him his map and the direction of his journey. Orange, giver of the wonderful gifts that had slain the giant. Green, his comedic friend, who had explained biology, stomped on his toe, and had given him the experience of his first vibratory shift. Violet, the maternal one, who had exposed the lessons of his life and revealed the responsibility he had for it all. Red, the horrible eater and marvelous introducer of his spirit family, and the loving White, the essence of purity, from whom Mike had learned of real love by watching a pure woman of incredible strength, and where he had also felt the heartbreak of his own missed opportunity. Mike knew it was their way of celebrating his victory, for the next house was the last one, and he would no longer need them in this land. His training was almost over. He had learned well and had passed a great test, conquering the beast on his own. He knew that they were saying goodbye. I honor you, my friends. Mike called to them, and he watched the glorious colors slowly fade, revealing a totally blue sky once again. Mike did not have to travel very far before the next cottage came into view, but this one was different. It was no cottage. It was an enormous mansion. As he approached it, Mike not only saw its size was unusual, but he realized that what he first thought might be a brown house slowly revealed itself as the House of Gold. As Mike got closer and closer to the house, his perception of its size continued to change. What had appeared to be a single-story large structure slowly became a multi-story gargantuan edifice of enormous proportions. And it wasn't just gold in color, but it actually seemed to be made of gold. A huge, well-kept green lawn set off the building in a grand style, and many rich-looking fountains and streams surrounded it, all gurgling and splashing in a splendid manner. Everything was offset with gorgeous flowers of almost every kind conceivable, arranged in groups of colors that were breathtaking. Mike saw something else that momentarily took away his breath. The path ended at the entrance to the house. The final goal must indeed be inside. This wasn't just a house, it was also a portal, an entrance into heaven itself. It was the door to home. Mike realized that he was anxious, breathing rather hard, as he cautiously turned from the main path and traveled up the long, winding footpath to the door of the great golden palace. Finally, he approached the large ornate door made entirely of gold. He wondered how he would ever open it, since it must be heavy indeed. He stooped down and removed his shoes, placing them in the obvious area made for them, and waited. He knew he would never see them again. No angel came. He wondered about the appropriateness of trying to open the massive door and stepping inside, then remembered that this had happened before in the 6th house, where White could not venture out of the house into the yard. Mike made his decision. He pulled on the gray golden door. It was far too large and tall for any practical use, but Mike felt it easily swing open. He stepped inside and stood in absolute amazement. Everything was gold. The walls, pillars, and floors. Grand decor everywhere. It was breathtaking. There was the smell again, flowers. The fragrance of 1,000 lilacs burst on his nostrils, filling him with a wonderful feeling of love. It was truly an amazing, sacred place. Then, Mike understood the joke immediately. While the other houses in this great land had appeared small on the outside and huge on the inside, this one was huge on the outside. But the inside, although grand indeed, was restricted. There was no labyrinth of room after room as in the others' houses. Instead, all doors and hallways led to one place. There were no choices as to where to turn, and there was only one direction to go. The path through the house was simple. Elegant, grand, glorious, and exquisite, but simple. There were no ancillary rooms, no living quarters for Mike. Nothing looked as it had in the other houses. There was also another feeling here. Mike was trying to locate in his mind what the feeling was as he slowly made his way through the few hallways to wherever they were leading him. Yes, he remembered. It was the feeling he had when he entered a great worship hall. He felt a reverence for it. It had majesty, as if he were in a sacred sanctuary. Mike didn't know what to expect. There still was no angel. This was a first, the only time he had ever entered a house without being greeted. After his great battle and all the excitement, Mike should have been hungry, but he wasn't. He was too excited. He continued forward until he reached a door that looked somehow different. It had a name etched on it. The writing was that same strange Arabic-looking script that he had seen on the labels in the House of Maps. Then he had seen it again in Violet's charts. He knew it must be the name of the Golden Angel, wherever it was. Mike opened the door and went in. What greeted Michael Thomas was never to be forgotten. He stood in a grand chamber of majestic beauty. It was a great hall of worship, or so it seemed. It was cathedral-like, with finely crafted, multicolored glass windows lining the walls. At each glorious window, the outside light was converted into rainbows that spilled onto the immense golden floor in pools of undulating color. As he cast his gaze upward, he could see into a golden area that had no end. The walls of the room were circular, and Mike could see that the door he had come through was the only entrance to the chamber. There was a golden fog that gently swirled around the room, giving the scene a feeling of being a pond in the early morning when everything is fresh. The fog interacted with the light in an astoundingly gorgeous way. Each time the fog swirled into the rainbow pools of light, a burst of brilliant color would be absorbed into the fog, turning the moist air into a gossamer rainbow, painting the area with the hues of the entire color spectrum. Mike realized that he was holding his breath and forced himself to breathe. Slowly, he realized that all the light, the decor, and the focus of the architecture was dedicated to honoring the center of the oval sanctuary. There were grand staircases at the edges of the great oval, but they only led to balconies that overlooked and focused on the center of the room. Mike concentrated on the room. The center of the grand chamber was heavy with the golden fog, but there was something else there as well. Mike started forward, realizing that he was certainly approaching the end of his journey. As he moved toward the center of the area of golden fog, he realized that the shrine was far larger than he had originally thought. All the gold and the deceptive design lent itself to tricking the space perception of the human eye. He walked toward the center and found that it was taking him far longer than it should have. Finally, he was only a few feet from the focal point. He stopped. What was there? Something solid was inside the cloak of fog. Another structure? He was almost at the center when an astounding burst of energy hit him. Mike was suddenly on his knees. A sense of incredible sacredness and sanctity had descended upon him with a power that demanded he kneel. He was breathless, and his eyes were cast down so as not to violate some unspoken, sacred protocol. His body was starting to shake with the feeling of amazing vibration that could only have come from the presence of God. This was it. He was approaching the final door to heaven and home. Perhaps there would be no angel, and yet all the other angels had told him that he was about to meet the grandest entity of them all. Mike felt that there was an awesome presence here, the anointed and miraculous presence of God itself. He was having a hard time breathing. Mike lifted his eyes and saw the fog clearing. He remained on his knees, but sat up straighter to watch what was taking place. The clearing fog revealed a large, golden block-like structure. Further clearing showed that the block had steps cut into it. A stairway led upward. Was the door to home at the top of the stairs? The energy was growing very intense, and Mike didn't feel worthy of being there. There are times when a human knows his place, and no matter what Mike had been through, he didn't measure up to the sanctity and grandeur of what was before him. He was at the portal to heaven itself, and felt like a rubber doll. He felt immobilized by the power of spirit and the resplendence of God. He knew that just a few steps away was something far more powerful than anything he had ever imagined. Something so potently loving and spectacular in its beauty that it represented creation itself. Mike felt himself laboring for oxygen, but he kept his head up. He had to see it. Now he knew that indeed there was an entity yet to meet, the grandest one of all, they had said. Indeed, it must be so. What stupendous angelic creature could bring this energy? He hoped he could survive the intensity of the vibration long enough to meet it, even if the next moments vaporized him in some burst of heavenly multidimensional light. He had to see it. He remembered the stories of what had happened to those who had touched the Ark of the Covenant in Jewish history. They had vanished in a burst of vapor due to the fact that they had touched God. He felt that this could happen to him, too, if the energy of the moment increased much more. His cells felt as if they were going to burst. All of them were trying to celebrate at the same time. He had a feeling of expansion from within. Mike was beginning to be afraid, not for his life, but afraid that he would not get to see the entity that belonged in this last unbelievable house. The fog continued to lift. The ornamented, golden block with stairs cut into it became clearer. It wasn't just a block, it was a throne. Ornate, radiant beyond words, superbly built, and as gold as anything could be. It seemed to glow with its own sacredness. The angel must be sitting on it. Who could it be? Now, Mike suddenly found himself sobbing. His biology was bursting apart inside with the grandness of this holy energy, and he felt waves of gratitude and love pour from his heart. He simply could not control his emotions. The energy upon him was thick, and he knew that the golden entity he was expecting was indeed coming down the steps. The greatest angel of them all was about to emerge from the golden fog that hid the top of the throne. It was actually coming, he knew it. Perhaps he was about to meet the guardian to the doorway to home, the one he had wanted to meet all along, the one that knew everything. Mike was a basket case. He didn't want to be seen like this. He wanted to be strong, but he couldn't even stand up. He wanted the Golden One to know that he had passed the tests and had slain the giant, but he couldn't even speak. He felt childlike and unable to control his emotions. His chest heaved with gratitude and honor and lack of oxygen. Mike's head was starting to hurt. Who was this approaching that carried such power? What entity in the universe represented the God force in such a dramatic manner? Fear not, Michael Thomas of pure intent. You have been expected. said the great angel whose torso had dimly come into view as it descended the stairs. The voice, it was familiar. Who was it? The voice, although carrying with it a sacredness of the highest order, was quiet and peaceful. The entity who was approaching was perhaps the highest of them all, yet the meeting began in a quiet manner, unassuming, with a message of reassuring safety. Despite the message, Mike could not adequately use his voice at the moment. He was still too moved to speak, and the seeming assault on his emotional state wasn't getting any better. He continued to watch as he grasped his chest with his hand, covering his heart so that it would not burst out of his body in anticipation of the golden master of love, who was now speaking to him. He didn't want to miss this, and hoped he wouldn't pass out. His sight was beginning to blur. The magnificent, heavenly angel came floating down the carved, glistening gold steps, slowly approaching the kneeling and shaking Michael Thomas. Even in his rapturous state, Michael wondered about the seeming dichotomy of stairs for an entity that didn't need them. Michael saw the great, glowing body first. The head of the golden one remained above him, enveloped in the golden fog. The angel paused, its face still out of sight. Mike saw that it was huge, bigger than all the others he had met. The golden hue of its garments was so brilliant that the folds seemed to be electric. He could see the bottom of the wings now. He knew there would be wings. They vibrated like 10,000 butterflies, but without sound. Mike was certain that when the head came into view, there would be a magnificent halo. Such was the consecrated feeling of this great creature. It wasn't that Mike was becoming used to this energy, but he realized that something was happening to him as the angel paused. He was being given a gift, and he knew it. A bubble of soft, white light was forming around him, caressing him and creating feelings of peacefulness within him. Mike breathed a sigh of relief. He knew that he couldn't have taken much more of that divine energy. Slowly, he started breathing normally as he now sat on the floor. The emotional wash of overwhelming love became a wash of peace, and he slowly recovered his normal human balance. 10 minutes passed, and the angel remained stationary. Mike was growing stronger and knew that the angel had created a place for him, protected by this bubble of light, where his vibration could exist next to the godly vibration of a stupendous creature from heaven itself. Finally, he spoke, but did not get up. "Thank you, great golden angel." Mike took a deep breath. "I am not afraid. I know exactly what you are feeling, Michael, and indeed you are not afraid." The angel still didn't move. Michael was trying to place the voice. It had the same kind of peaceful energy that White's had, and it tended to soothe Mike's very soul when he heard it. The voice was big, filling the entire space around him, yet quiet at the same time. He knew he had heard it before, but where? In what other area in this great spiritual place had he heard it? When he knew he could speak again, he did. "Do I know you, great sacred one?" Mike inquired softly and reverently. "Oh yes," replied the partially exposed giant angel. "We know each other well." The majesty of the voice was powerful, filled with glory and splendor. Mike didn't understand, but he also didn't push the subject. The situation was thick with protocol and ceremony. It was better to sit and be spoken to in this energy, and Mike honored the difference in vibration between them. Now the angel spoke again. "Our entire time in this house, Michael Thomas, will last not more than a few moments. It will be filled with revelation and great purpose. The vibrational difference between us is so great that we cannot sustain the meeting for long, but long enough." Long enough for what? Mike thought. The angel continued, and the glorious strains of its voice again softened the very molecules in Mike's body as they fell on his ears and were absorbed by his internal biology. "Michael Thomas of pure intent, do you love God?" Mike's cells buzzed with action. That question again. Chills of realization raced up his spine. He had felt that White was the last one required to ask this, but he had been wrong. Here it was being asked again. This was it. His cells were all trying to speak again at the same time. "Tell him yes," they pleaded. Perhaps the answer he would give to the Golden One would be his passport through the door home. This was the last time the question would be asked, and the most important time. He wanted this moment to be profound, Mike paused, but couldn't think of an eloquent answer. His mind was empty of anything but honor to be in such a place, before such a godly entity. "Yes, I do." His voice was honest and pure. It didn't shake. And Michael Thomas, of pure intent. The wonderful voice continued from the invisible face in the dancing fog. "Do you wish to view the face of God, the one you profess to love?" Michael was frozen by the possibilities suggested by these holy words. What did this mean? What was the revelation? Where was this going? Again his cells demanded that Mike say yes. He answered automatically and simply, "Yes, I do." His voice shook this time, and he knew the angel had heard it. "Then, Michael Thomas of pure intent," said the angel as he was starting to move down the stairs, "behold the face of God, the one you have told us that you loved, 8 times." The shimmering magnificence of the most sacred of all entities closed in on Michael Thomas. Even with the protection bubble he had been given, Mike felt the energy level increase as the entity once again began to emerge from the thick golden fog and move down the steps of the golden stairway to the level that Mike was on. The entity was so large that part of the fog clung to him as he descended. When he finally stood before Mike, the fog was still gradually clearing around his face as he again spoke. "Get up, Michael. You need to stand for this." Michael knew something profound was coming. He slowly arose on shaky legs and searched the clearing fog with his eyes and his mind at full alert, staring at the place where the face would emerge. Finally it did, and Michael Thomas of pure intent, the human who had seen just about everything on his path, who had faced the beast and slain it, who had made his transition better than any other human had in this great spiritual place, became as jelly in the revelation that ensued. Astonishment filled his teary eyes. Understanding teetered within his logical and spiritual mind as he tried to sort out what he was viewing and what it could mean. His emotions were suspended, unable to process the information that his eyes were suddenly revealing to him. His legs became weak, and he went down involuntarily on his knees for the second time in this sacred chamber of ornate gold. The face of the great spiritual entity that had descended the chiseled stairs and the great golden throne was the face of Michael Thomas. There was no illusion here. It belonged to the angel. It was the angel. The angel was Michael. Therefore, as you love God, so it is that you love me. The gold one knew Mike wasn't really listening. His mind was still confounded. Overwhelming shock had filled every cell, and Mike was still trying to sort it out. What did this mean? Was it real? The angel continued. Mike sat motionless on the floor, still unable to take it all in. "Time for another gift, Michael." The angel's voice continued to be calming and reassuring, sending peace and understanding into Mike's very being. "I give you the gift of discernment, Michael, as you listen to my explanation." Mike's mind started to clear. He again realized that the angel was giving him direct conscious help with his own understanding. This time it would be to clear his mind of human predisposition and bias. The angel again spoke. "There is something within each human that dramatically fights to the last logical synapse of brain matter to keep from believing that it is anything other than human, Michael." The angel smiled, and Mike again seemingly saw himself in the mirror, smiling to himself. The voice was his own, but he had not recognized it. The only time humans hear their own voice accurately is on tape, which he had, but only a few times. He needed to hear what the angel was saying, and now his mind was clearing to allow for it. The angel continued, "I am your higher self, Michael Thomas, a part of God that resides in you as you walk the planet Earth. This is your last revelation and lesson before you continue to your goal. This is the last hurdle of information for you to absorb. It is the highest and most potent truth for all humanity, the one that is the best hidden and hardest to accept." The angel was fascinating to hear, but Mike found him very distracting to watch now, because he had Mike's face. Still, Mike was absorbed by the information and desired to learn what it meant. He had to go forward. He had to know more. The angel moved slightly and floated to one side, revealing more of the upper portion of where it had previously stood on the carved-out staircase. It continued, This is the golden house of self-worth, Michael. Nothing will stop you in your enlightened journey faster than the feeling that you don't deserve it. Therefore, we chose to reveal to you who you really are. You are part of me, Michael. We are an angel of the highest order, like all humans are. We are the ones who have chosen to visit planet Earth, go through the trials of human life, and raise the planet's vibration by our journey's lessons and experience. We are the ones who can make a difference for all humanity as well as the universe. Believe me, Michael Thomas, what you did on Earth made great changes in other areas. But I didn't stay. Mike blurted out what was on his mind. Hearing this information, and again feeling that he had surrendered early, and I didn't learn anything. It doesn't matter, Michael, stated the angel. It's the intent to make the journey, and the original agreement to participate in the sacrifice that is honored so greatly. Just your presence on the planet is honorable and correct. Didn't you realize this? Did you ever hear the story of the prodigal son? It's told in every culture, you know. Mike knew the story, but he hadn't applied it to this situation. He remembered that the son in the story was loved and welcomed by the father, even though he hadn't honored the family's ways. The angel moved again as it continued the explanation. Michael, the other angels loved you so much. Didn't you wonder what you had done to deserve such a thing? Now you know. You and I, are an elite group. We are among those highly loved and honored who have elected to come to Earth, live in a lower biology, and have that fact hidden from us. You are actually a piece of God, walking the planet in lesson for the sake of a grander purpose, and you get to view that piece before you now. Michael was awed by it all. He thought back over the past few weeks. The family and contracts he had learned about in the House of Violet he found amazing. The family revealed to him in the House of Red was astounding. But now, the revelation that he, the human Michael Thomas, was actually among the highest angels of all, and the other humans also. Could he really be so grand? Yes, you are, Michael. Yes, we are. It is now time for you to understand and realize that you deserve to come to Earth. You planned to come and actually stood in line. You are honored among entities for what you have done, and you are worthy now to move into the next phase. As you have professed to love God so many times through your journey, so it is, therefore, that you must also love yourself. Think about this, Michael Thomas, for its truth must change your perspective and the very essence of your human purpose. Mike was now far more alert to the information, since the angel had given the gift of calming and discernment to him. He was clear. This was indeed hard information to digest. The angel continued to speak. The final step now, and would have been had you continued on Earth, will be to absorb this partnership. Know that it is real. Feel the worthiness and divinity of your humanness. Know that you are actually a sacred entity of heaven itself. Feel the fact that you belong here and are eternal. Own the badge of gold that it gives to you, Michael Thomas. Mike had a flashback from his time in the White House, when White had shown him the vision of Mary in the hospital. He now remembered something that had remained hidden from his mind. White had uttered words that were meaningless until now. The angel had said that Mary had accepted the golden one. Did Mary know about you? Mike had to ask. Mary knew about her own higher self, Michael, if that's what you mean. She was partnering with her higher self the whole time you observed her. That is what you felt. She knew who she was. She knew about the golden room and the golden throne. She knew she was sacred and that she deserved to be on Earth. She owned her sacredness. Again, Michael was in awe of Mary, this small woman who had shown him so much, and he had never even known her. "Oh, she knows you, Mike," said the golden one. "She does? How?" "Just as all of us know each other," the angel replied. She was very aware that her gift to her father that day was having profound effects on others. Her intuition told her so. She even knew she was being watched. She, like you now, had all the gifts and tools and maps within her, and also the golden gift of divine discernment that I am passing to you. Such is the power of an enlightened human on Earth. Wow, Michael was learning so much, and his respect for Mary was soaring even beyond what it had been. She knew, Her intuition told her that her actions were being watched and used to help me. The test is at hand, Michael Thomas. The angel was getting down to business. Michael knew there would have to be some kind of test. What would it be? How could this entity with his face and his soul know if the human Michael Thomas had accepted the reality of his self-worth or not? There's only one way. The angel floated off to one side. Do not be alarmed, Michael, but I must now remove your gift of vibrational protection for the rest of our time together. You have either absorbed the truth or not. This test may not seem difficult, but it is impossible to pass unless you are pure and have accepted the truth of the partnership. I have, said Mike, feeling anxious. What was the golden one going to do? The white bubble was beginning to fade around him, and he was once again seemingly assaulted by the vibration of the sanctity of the God force around him. There it was again. All that love, all that energy of purpose and focus of millions of entities. This time, however, Michael also felt something new. He felt a slight tingle of being part of it all. Could this be the test? I feel it, called out Michael. He was hoping that this was it. Would the test, whatever it was, be over now? No such luck. Instead, the great golden angel with the face of Michael Thomas approached him. Michael Thomas of pure intent, sit down on the third step. Mike was starting to breathe with difficulty again. His soul simply didn't understand being in a vibration that was so high. Mike spoke out loud to his body, not thinking about the fact that the golden angel was even there. He had to get control over his biology, and right now, we are okay, Mike said to his cells. Don't react in fear. We deserve this. We are worthy of this. Mike was shouting, and he knew it. He was automatically doing what Green had taught him, and he was getting instant results. He sat down on the third stair of the great golden throne and began to grow calm. Mike suddenly realized that the Golden One was watching him intently. He saw the biggest smile on that golden face. You really do know what to do, my human counterpart. These are things that I could not impart to you, but you have learned them well from the others. Now, let's see if you have fully absorbed what I had to give you in the same way. The next thing that happened shocked Michael Thomas even more than the revelation of the angel's face a few moments before. The great Golden One, who moments before had represented the epitome of the God Force itself, was beginning to kneel before Michael Thomas. The magnificent golden wings spread and unfurled in a royal manner, like a cape of gold unfolding and expanding with the angel's movements toward the floor. The two magnificent appendages fanned out just enough to allow the great body to move gracefully down without his wings touching the ground. Mike's body did indeed have a strong reaction, but it didn't disable him this time. Instead, it overwhelmed him in a loving way as he continued to watch what the angel was going to do. As he knelt, the grand angel produced a golden bowl from somewhere and held it gently before him ceremoniously. He looked directly at Mike and spoke loving words to him. In this bowl are figuratively the tears of my joy for you, Michael Thomas. With this, I wish to anoint and wash your feet, for you are worthy of the honor. Oh no, this godly entity is going to actually touch me. Now Mike understood the test. A touch from this Golden One would determine if Mike's cells had really understood the worthiness issue, and if his body was truly aware of its lineage of sacredness. No wonder the test couldn't be faked. This was it. The angel paused before he touched the left foot of Michael Thomas and answered the questions in Mike's mind. It isn't a test of vibrational shift, Michael. For you and I will never be the same vibration until we meld together again at the end. This is a test of your human belief. We must own the fact that we, as God, deserve to be human. This will test if you truly understand that you are worthy of having your feet washed by Spirit itself, and if the love you have for God is reflected in the love you have for yourself. Mike relaxed. He knew his own mind and knew he had accepted this thought and lesson from the Grand One. He suddenly realized that the test would reveal it to the angel as well. He was ready. There he sat, before the grandest of the grand. The angel, even with its largeness, had positioned itself below Mike's eye level. The protocol was not lost on Mike, and and he felt his emotions well up inside at what was taking place. The Noble One gently took his foot, and an unbelievable tingling feeling crept up Michael's body, right up into his very heart and mind. He was starting to overflow with compassion, and tears began streaming down his face. He said nothing as the angel gently washed his foot. Michael felt he was loved beyond measure. He didn't disappear. He didn't vanish in a flash of energy. Although he was feeling the pressure of the vibrational energy between them and was barely coping with it, he was aware that he was worthy to receive it. Still he remained silent, for he knew that love is quiet. He knew that pure love has no agenda. So the glorious Gold One wasn't going to ask him for anything in return. He knew that love didn't puff itself up, and that the angel wasn't going to suddenly be joined by a legion from the heavenly hosts. This was personal, and the angel was silently asking Michael to accept the honor and just be. The feeling in Michael Thomas was indescribable. Tears of great joy and gratitude continued to flow, but he was not ashamed. He knew that the angel understood that this was a human's way of saying thank you, odd as it might seem. Finally, the angel spoke again. His voice was full of pride for Michael. Michael Thomas of pure intent, you have indeed passed this great test, one of the greatest of all. But now I will show you something even greater. Even though you have passed all tests, and even though you stand ready to move to the door of home itself, I will now wash your other foot. It is my honor to do so, and exemplifies the love that God has for you. There is no more test here. There is nothing I gain from this. I do it because I love you. Never forget this moment. If there could have been a more sacred moment in Mike's life, he couldn't fathom it. The tears continued to flow, and the love continued to be shared by the two entities of the same soul force, as the great golden angel gently washed Mike's other foot, which looked small in the angel's large hands. Finally, it was over. The bowl magically vanished, and the angel straightened to full height, his wings again folded appropriately and perfectly against his body. You may now arise, Michael Thomas. Your intent has been shown to be pure indeed, and you are ready to go home. Michael got up, looked around the chamber, and then back at the angel. As if reading his mind, the angel took his hand and motioned to something behind Mike. Up the stairs, Michael. The angel again smiled. Mike turned and looked up into the swirling golden fog. The steps on the golden throne beckoned him into yet another unknown place of great purpose. He looked back at the angel as if to confirm that he was to climb the stairs for himself. The door you seek is there, Michael. Oh yes, and remember this. Things are not always as they seem. Mike didn't stop to ask about that statement at this point. It was slowly becoming the mantra of this place. He was aware that he could not stay here for long. The angel knew it too, and gently moved next to Michael, touching him again, this time with a great encircling arm around Mike's shoulder. In a soft, reassuring voice, the angel spoke his last words. I just came from there myself, Michael. It's okay. You must go now. The goal is at hand. I will join you there shortly. We never say goodbye, since we are one. Mike knew he had to remove himself from this potent energy. He turned and quickly started up the steps. Now he understood why there were stairs. It was for the human, not the angel, and the steps were spaced apart perfectly for Mike's foot size. It was all starting to make sense, but Mike didn't want to analyze anymore. It was time to graduate. It was his time to move into that place called home. He moved forward up the steps of the great ornate golden throne. He stopped to look one more time at the Golden One, the piece of God that was he, now standing regally with its hands clasped together, smiling at Michael Thomas from the foot of the steps. The angel was right. There was no feeling here of any farewell. It really was part of him. Mike began to realize that within the last day, he had met two parts of himself, the one without love and the one with it. Somewhere in between was the human consciousness, and it was for him to choose where it would settle. What a concept. Mike turned and began to climb the steps. The thick fog hid what was immediately above him, and he could only see about 10 golden stairs at a time. He was careful to watch his footing. The last thing he wanted was to fall off this tower at the pinnacle of his sacred journey. He laughed to himself at the thought of ingloriously tumbling back to the bottom and apologizing to his grand higher self for being a klutz. The mild humor immediately made him feel more relaxed. He was aware that he had climbed at least 2 stories of steps, and a landing of some sort was just ahead. What a magnificent throne, he thought. It's really huge. And it's his. Finally, he had reached the top of the steps. Michael was not disappointed. There, next to an enormous ornate and regally carved golden chair, was the door he had planned on viewing for these many weeks. His vision of so long ago now loomed before him, within easy reach. It was well lit, and the main feature next to the chair. It seemed to be suspended, without walls around it, and it was not apparent where its reality met the reality of the golden throne. Mike realized that it was not part of the House of Self-Worth, or the structure he was in. It was a portal, and therefore had a different dimensional attribute. The door had a great deal of writing on it, some of which he could not interpret, but in plain English he also saw the word home. Mike had waited a long time for this. He had been through a great deal, learned much, and had altered his very cellular structure in preparation for what was on the other side of this portal. Now it almost seemed anticlimactic. He stood there thinking of all that had happened, and of the breathtakingly beautiful golden angel at the foot of the stairs. He thought again of what had happened there on the 3rd step a few moments before. Indeed, that last experience had made the final difference in how he felt. Mike faced the door in a ceremonious way. "I deserve this," said a confident Michael Thomas, "and I honor the universe for allowing me to do what I am about to do. With complete love, I enter the place I have asked to be." The ceremony completed, Michael Thomas breathed one more giant breath of human air and bravely opened the door marked home. Mike vomited. Michael Thomas, the warrior of pure intent, has defeated the final, most cunning enemy, his own self-doubt. He has claimed his golden chair, declared his worthiness, and with absolute confidence, opened the door marked home. But what truly lies on the other side? The journey home is not what Michael or you expected. In episode 9, the journey home concludes. We follow Michael Thomas through the dimensional portal, revealing the shocking, yet profoundly sacred, truth of the final moments of the journey. He finds himself back on Earth, realizing that the entire spiritual journey was preparation for his one true mission, to find Anoli, the love of his life, and complete his contract with humanity, to witness the sacred, final revelation and understand the deep metaphorical meaning of Michael's unexpected return. Subscribe to Neo Insight and prepare for the inspiring conclusion of this legendary parable.